Hello and welcome to Your Exceptional Life, the weekly podcast dedicated to helping you be exceptional in every single area of your life. That's right, not just your career, not just your family, not just your health, not just your wealth, all areas, because muck one of them up. You know what? The consequences are disastrous. Welcome to this episode. I'm coming to you from my hotel room in the Royal Pines Resort on the Gold Coast. Small break for me at the moment. I'm emceeing the Go Vita 25th annual conference here, and there's an AGM going at the moment, a members only AGM. Not even an MC is required, and so I've got a little break. So I thought, what better way to make the most of my time than be recording this episode. I've been down in the there's plenty of suppliers here. There's over 60 suppliers here, and the great Cindy O'Meara is here. I've just had some time with Joe Witten and Fuad Kassab from Quirky Cooking, and seeing the Loving Earth girls and all types of people in the wellness space, Brook Farm, all types of wonderful people having great conversations. And what I've loved about this 3 days that it will have been here on the Gold Coast is the message, the strength, and this is what I want to focus on this episode, is the strength of community. It is really difficult to put on an event. If you know my stuff, you know that I run the Wellness Couch podcast network, and we run events, the Wellness Summit and the Wellness Breakthrough, and so I have great respect for people that put events together because I know how much work they take. We have 1,000 people come to our Wellness Summit in Melbourne. It's, you know, you're dealing with so many different people and their requests and needs and all the rest of it. And so Darren Crichton-Brown, who has DCB events, and his helpers Tracy and Ginny and Lucas, they have been working so hard to make this event special, and I gotta say, they have done a remarkable job. Absolutely remarkable job. If you consider everyone that attends, and then 60 plus suppliers coming from all parts of Australia, it is just a phenomenal effort. But the reason why I have great respect for this is because there is so much power in having real life events, real life, creating real life experiences for people. It'd be so easy to not have an annual conference for a company just to keep everyone, you know, working in their business and doing their things. But as much as it takes all of this effort, the value that people get from a real life experience is it's difficult to measure. And this leads me into I suppose the takeaway from this is the health benefits and the life benefits of having real life human experiences can never really be measured through a needle or some type of double blind, you know, placebo controlled study and all the rest of it. It's not how it works. Having real human contact, like I'm talking not just tactile stimulation, but being in a room with people, you can't replicate that by being on Skype or on a webinar or even watching this podcast if you're watching it on YouTube or listening to it. If we were having this conversation in real life, a completely different physiological response and different biochemical reactions will be happening within your body compared to listening or watching this. And I want to share a story with you, and if you've heard me speak before, you will have known it, and if you've read a book, which I'm going to refer to in a moment, you will know this story. But in the 50s, when the heart disease epidemic was sweeping through America, there was a small town in Pennsylvania known as Roseto. And Roseto had been settled by Rosetans from Italy. There was a village in Italy called Roseto, and then a number of these Rosetans relocated to America for greater opportunities and all the rest of it. And I won't tell you all the details except to say that they eventually settled in Pennsylvania, and they named the plot of land which they settled on Roseto. And over there was a village of Germans, and down the hill was a village of French, and in their little space it was all Italians. And so what they did was they did a lot to replicate the community spirit that they had back in Roseto, Italy. They grew their own veggies, they did their own, you know, they had their family times, they had their religious faith, they had their experiences, they had a great priest in town. A lot of the men worked in a quarry, a lot of the women worked with weaving and cloth and fashion and all the rest of it. And they created a phenomenal community based on the values that they had grown up with in Italy, and they did the same in Roseto, Pennsylvania. So the heart disease epidemic sweeps through America, and literally heart disease becomes the #1 killer, and it's just, you know, it's mind-boggling, and no one knows what to do, and no one knows what happens. And then one day, an American researcher by the name of Stuart Wolf is in, he's got a plot of land somewhere in Pennsylvania. Anyway, so he's at a pub, I think, a bar in Pennsylvania. Now, he was invited to do a talk. Pardon me, because I've just had the idea to run this topic, so I'm not going to remember all of the details, but he's doing it. He's been invited to do a talk. He ends up talking, I think, to maybe local physicians. He has a beer with one of the local physicians, and the local physician says, how many times do you want me to say physician? The local doctor says, you know what, with all of this heart disease epidemic stuff going around this country, I don't have any patients from Roseto that present with the same symptoms, they don't have the same problems, they're not dying at the same rate and all the rest of it. And the researcher Stuart Wolf, his mind is blown by this, because he's like, well, that can't be right, because this is what we know about what's happening with heart disease in this country and the rest. So they start to do some research. They get all of the Rosetans in, they're doing blood tests, they're going around to their houses, they're interviewing them, what do they eat, how do they move, all the rest of it. They go, oh, surely it must be their genes. They do all of the studies, and here's what they find. They look at the genes. So first of all, they look at what's happening to Rosetans back in Roseto, Italy. They then look at what's happened to the Rosetans that didn't settle in Pennsylvania, that moved to other parts of America. And the ones that moved to other parts of America have got the same heart disease epidemic profile as the rest of America. Not what is going on in Roseto, Pennsylvania. They then think, well, maybe it's something in the air. So then they go down to the German village and the French village, and they've got the same statistics as the rest of America. And then they go, well, maybe it's what they eat. And they look at their diet; it's actually quite terrible. They've got a lot of poor dietary habits. It's not this incredible Mediterranean diet. They couldn't grow what they grew back in Italy. Some of their fat choices, their fat sources weren't that great. So it wasn't their food. Then they looked at their exercise, and they didn't exercise very much. There was quite a fair bit of obesity, overweight. There was a fair bit of smoking in Roseto, Pennsylvania. And so there were a lot of anti-Christ habits which were really mucking with the scientific brains of those researching what was going on. They couldn't identify, it wasn't a wealth status, it wasn't a relationship, it wasn't whether you were married or not. It was nothing that they could point their finger on. And so essentially they gave up. They said, you know what, we can't figure this out, it's done. And a little time passed, and the researcher, Stuart Wolf, was walking down the street with one of the local physicians, and essentially had this epiphany. They looked around the streets and they saw the way that the Rosetans communicated with each other. They saw the conversations, they saw the strangers talking, they observed the families all coming together, and they realised in that moment that it wasn't what they ate or how they moved or their gene profile or the air they breathed or any of that. It was their community. It was their relationship with human beings. And it was the fact that they had such a strong bond with their fellow man and woman that was keeping them alive despite this heart disease epidemic. Now, you might be watching and listening to this going, that is an absolute load of baloney. And you know what? I'm okay, you can disagree all you like. The fact is, this is what happened. They remained alive while so many other people were dying. And you research or you get anecdotal evidence from those people that were interviewed, and then you ask them about their culture and all of the rest of it. There's some great, I'll put a YouTube link to a featured story done on this in America on the Italian Americans. It's phenomenal how much culture they have and that they celebrate. And this is where a lot of us could probably look each other in the eye and go, we haven't maintained our culture of connecting with humanity. And that's why I love coming to conferences like this, because people are all together. It's so much easier, and I really challenge you on this. Have you replaced your real life relationships with social media relationships, with digital relationships? Are you over baking the cake on Facebook and Snapchat and Instagram and Twitter and Skype and email? Are you picking up the phone? Are you catching up for coffee? Are you going out for dinner? Are you joining sporting clubs? Are you inviting family friends over? Are you doing play dates for your kids? What are you doing to create social gatherings? I know at times we go to our iPads or our iPhones or our screens or whatever. They are a low-level companion. They are a low-level companion. You want companions that are human beings. You want to be able to relate to your fellow human beings. And the way that you really master the art of relating with them is relating with them. So many people whinge and moan about our poor relationship and communication skills these days. And you know what? It's because the muscle of communication is in direct proportion to the muscle of socializing. The less you socialize, the worse your communication gets. The more you socialize, the better your communication gets. And you know what? When you socialize more, the health benefits of socializing more are astronomical. Even in dementia, Dr. Michael Woodward, one of the leading professors on dementia in Australia, will tell you that the biggest preventative factor is movement. The second biggest preventative factor is social engagement. And the third biggest preventative factor is doing what you love, keeping your brain ticking over, problem solving, which is far easier to do when you're engaged in your work. If you've got a dead-end job, your brain's hardly going to go to town on problem solving because you can't be bothered doing it. So I want you to really consider right now, take an audit of what you're doing in your life right now to create a great social life. Are you spending time with family? That's social. Are you spending time with kids? Anything is social that is connecting you with humanity. When you go into the cafe, are you talking to your barista? Are you saying hi to the other people that you see in the cafe? Are you being a nice person? Are you helping a stranger across the road? Are you letting someone in as they turn right? Even if they break the road rules, are you still giving them a wave? Or are you, expressing profanities at loud voices and all the rest of it? We had a funny chat. I won't mention his name, but one of the people here was talking about how our kids mimic us and all the rest of it. We got into the topic of swearing, and he said that sometimes he's been known to accidentally swear in front of his kids, and we're talking about mimicking, and then we got onto cars, and he was saying that one of his kids was at school and they were having like a car day, and the kids were mimicking their parents, and the kid was beeping the horn and was saying words which we won't repeat now, and the parents were kind of pointing at each other going, is that you? Is that what you're teaching our kids? So we want to be really clear that there is a massive power to socializing, whether it's with our children, whether it's with our friends, our family, our colleagues, as this Go Vita conference is. It's colleagues coming together. There's 140 stores around Australia, and they don't get to see each other in real life unless they come to conference. And so it's a powerful experience for them, and you can have this in your family. You might have conference every morning for breakfast. You might have conference every evening for dinner, at lunch, whenever it is. But make sure you congregate with the people that are most important to you in your life. And for those that are on the periphery, whether it's your community, whether it's strangers in a car park at a cafe, as I look down at the car park here, whether you're on holiday, just be nice to people. Watch the quality of your life expand as you be nice to people, and watch the quantity of your life expand as you connect with humanity. The people that have the greatest, longest lives are those that do what they love and love what they do, move their bodies regularly, and socially engage. Hope you've enjoyed this episode. I'd love to know your feedback. Connect with me on social at Marcus D. Pearce. Drop me an email. You know how much I love email. I'm Ringo Starr when it comes to email. Ringo Starr loved getting fan mail, and he'd always reply to them. I love that myself. So if you want to send me your feedback, tell me about your social life. Tell us what you've done. I love getting stories of people going, I heard this. I always remember the story, Deb, a client, she heard this for the first time, and her kids had got older, and pre-kids, they used to have these Friday night, spa night barbecues at their house. And she's like, we stopped having our friends over. We'd get a couple of other families over, a couple of other friends over, and we'd up in the spa, we'd have a barbecue, we'd have a few beers and all the rest of it. And they stopped doing it when they had kids. She's like, I'm resuming Friday nights at our place. And it was just one of those moments where a podcast, a talk, whatever it is, flipped it around. Maybe that's you. Maybe you've been burning the candle at both ends. You've been leaving the office late. You may have no accountability to leave early. Maybe you start having a Wednesday night dinner party at your place, and it's for 7:30, which means you leave work at 5:30. You get home at 6. You start cooking dinner, do a few things, and you've got friends coming over for a couple of hours. Just create the accountability of socializing. Create healthy appointments in your life that really make it it's just so good for your quality of life, and the benefit is your quantity of life as well. All right, so much to share. I better go back on stage. We've got Joe Witten and Fuad Kassab, the quirky cooks themselves, coming on the stage here. I'll go and get ready for that. Look after yourself. Have a wonderful week. And until next time, as always, continue to live your exceptional life.